Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Welcome to part 4 of creating my Caboo Island landscape. Yesterday I cemented the rocks in place and the cement has set. So today I begin the fun part, and that's planting the landscape. Here is a look at the landscape so far. I added a little Land Rover in there. So that's a look at the rocks. So I'm going to plant a tree in here, some mosses. I'm going to add my dry salt lake bed here. It's going to be really fun today. I really enjoy this part of penjing. The hardest part of this whole project was deciding on a tree. I went to bed last night and I was thinking of this project as I was falling asleep, trying to think what tree would be the best for this project. And I thought my Portulacaria afra, the one that's in the forest, the big one, would look spectacular in here. It would really highlight the tree. It has a big thick trunk and I've scarred the trunk up and it would look fantastic. However, it is part of a set. It's part of a forest. All the other trees in the forest have the trunks scarred up and they all kind of match. So I don't really want to break that forest up, taking one tree out and planting it here, or two trees in here. I want to keep it as a group. So that will be probably planted in that other tokonami pot I have. So I was thinking, well, the other possibilities are my smaller Portulacaria afras, my jades, or my Mingoralia. And I was thinking about it a lot, and I think the Mingoralia is the best choice. It has nice fine leaves on it, so when it's in leaf, it'll probably look to scale in this planting. And when I show it, I can always remove the leaves if I want that dry baobab look. And I was thinking about the moss too. What I can do with the moss is you grow the moss and then you let it dry out so the moss dies. And then the moss goes from that nice lush green color to that kind of yellow straw-like color, which would look really good in this scene because Caboo Island in the dry season, all the plants in that are either leafless or the grasses are all yellow. The baobabs have lost their leaves and it looks very dry and baked in the sun, that kind of dry desert look. And that would be a nice image to portray for this penjing. Now I could do the opposite. I could go for the wet season look with the water on top of my lake bed, giving a bit of reflection. The moss is greened up and the leaves on the tree. So there's two different looks. And I would like to show it either way, or both ways. I'd like to show it, either at the spring show with it lush and green, and then in fall maybe with the dry desert look. I think it would be really cool to see those two contrasting images with the same penjing. I was looking at my reference photos of Caboo Island, and the salt flats aren't totally white. There's tan mixed in with it, and there's sort of patches of white and tan and white and tan, and then as you get closer to the shore, you get more rocks, and there's kind of the grasses that it's sort of a bit of a transition in some areas anyway to the rocks. Not all, some of the rocks come right out to the salt flats, but I think that would be nice to plant some mosses along the planting and have the salt flats kind of a mixture of white and the tan playground sand. So I'm going to try and do that so there's variation in the sand, patches of light and the playground sand color. Overall, the whole planting should be sort of gray in tone, both the rocks, the sand, and the trunks of the baobabs, or the Mingoralia, which I think I'll be using in this planting. So it'll be really interesting to see what it all looks like. I hope, my salt flats here don't blend in with the pot too much. I hope there's, a bit of a difference, so it'll be a little more of a tan color rather than this marble white color here. I've had a few questions about drainage in the planted section here, whether I'm going to drill a hole through the marble, and no, I'm not. I'm going to keep the tray intact. This marble pot is like a giant sponge. Water will evaporate from the marble. It kind of is porous. It absorbs a bit of water. And same with the rocks here. The excess water will be wicked up by the rocks and the cement and that, and it'll evaporate. What I'll do is I'll water the trees, and then I'll just tip the planting up and dump the excess water out, or water very carefully, keeping it just the right moisture level in the planted section. The sandy section here, the salt flats, I won't be keeping water in that section. It'll remain dry. The only time I would put water in this section is at a bonsai show. When I'm going for that wet season look, I would have a light skim of water over top of the salt flats, and the moss would be lush. So yeah, most of the time this landscape will be kept quite dry. I brought my white industrial sand into the greenhouse last night just in case it was frozen. I wanted it to thaw out because it was outside. This sand is, it's not totally white, it's a bit of an off-white color. So I'll mix it, I'll put patches of playground sand on top of it and kind of get that patchy salt flat look with it. So let me scoop it out into a tub and I'll start making the salt flats. Okay, let's move the Land Rover and start putting down the white sand here. I have no idea how much I'll need. So I'll fill it just below the lip of the pot here. And hopefully it'll look convincing as salt flats. The salt flats, I was looking at photos of them, close-up photos, and it's quite a rough surface texture. It almost looks like this. It's very granular. It's almost like little lumps of salt or something. So I think this sand will look quite close to what the actual salt flats look like. Now to level this, I might wet it with water. It would also be a good test for this section to make sure it's not, leaking into my land section. So you can see how my island is sticking up here now. Okay. So I've left a little room to put my playground sand on top to make it, a little variation in color. Because it does seem to be halfway between the color of playground sand and this kind of more white sand. Okay, a little bit more back here. Okay, well that sort of changes the look of it quite a bit. It brings that level up higher. All right, let me try watering it, kind of wetting it down so it self-levels. All right, here I go with the water. This will test this effect, the wet season look. Okay, that's kind of self-leveled there. Seems to be holding its water nicely. You can see the dry lake bed here is still dry. And this is still wet. So next, I'll get my playground sand, add some variation and color in the salt flat area. All right, I have my playground sand, so I'll add some of that. And I think I'm just going to try kind of sprinkling patches. That looks good. Bit near the shore. And I'll wash it off the rocks. Here is a look at the sand now from above. And I think I have too much playground sand on there. There's too much of a contrast. I think I need to take some of it away and show more of the white sand. It's just too much. I think, variation like this looks good, but that's just too much on the shoreline there. So I'll try and fix it up. So that's looking better. That's about right, I think, the variation. I'm just going to wash the rocks off a bit more. So down low you can see the mirror effect of the water. You can even add a Land Rover in here. That Land Rover definitely got stuck. It's up to its rear axle. Yeah, so you can see kind of the shimmer, what the water does to the sand. I think it looks good. Now, a lot depends on the lighting to get the right effect, but definitely kind of a cool effect. So, the next part is to start planting the land area here. I've got two Mingarelias. I have the $50 Bonsai Challenge one, which will be sort of the main tree. And then Derek gave me a cutting of a Mingarelia too. Now that's quite tall. I would have to prune it down, so I might have room for two trees in here and maybe even plant some cuttings as a third tree. I'll have to see how crowded it gets in here. So I'm going to get the Mingarelias now, bring them out to the greenhouse. I'll have to protect them because it's below freezing outside today. And then we'll see what they look like in this composition. Now, I could be totally wrong. Maybe these won't look good in the landscape. I've never, placed them in front. So there's the cutting that Derek gave me, starting to mature. Now, it would have to be cut down. And you can see the Mingarelia. If it's kept in good shape, the leaves do grow quite large. If it's kind of confined to a bonsai pot, here's my $50 challenge tree, you can see the leaves stay quite small. So I think in this little pocket of soil in the penjing, the leaves would stay quite small. I'd be careful with the watering, the fertilizer, keeping it kind of miniature looking. The Mingarelia is looking quite large when I have it beside the penjing. So let's try it out now. Let's see what it looks like in front of my Caboo Island landscape. Well, it's going to be, a fairly big tree. I think I kind of like this as the front. Has a lot coming forward. It's going to look like a giant tree, that's for sure. I think to really get a good idea of how it looks, I've got to pull it out of the pot and place it in here. Otherwise, I'm just kind of guessing here. So let's do that. Let's get the Mingarelia out of the pot and try it in the landscape. All right, here I go getting the Mingarelia out of the pot. Now, this was the $50 Bonsai Challenge, and I didn't buy soil. So this tree is in the original soil. It came from the nursery, which is more of a potting soil rather than a bonsai soil, but it's coming out quite easily, actually. Not real easy. I think there's a slight lip on this pot, so I'll have to help it out a bit. Maybe I'll have to help it out a lot. Come on. Oh my goodness. Come on. Out you come. I think it's attached to the drainage screen in the bottom. Oh, there I go. Wow. Yeah, there's the drainage screen. The roots have grown into it. There. Okay, I think I need to do some raking here. I think it's time to get it into bonsai soil. Now this moss, I can save that moss. It's quite nice moss. I'll put that in my tray of moss. And I'll continue raking out the soil here. Oh, nice to see some good surface roots there, or trunk flare anyway. So the trees on Caboo Island are quite twisted and contorted. They're, very interesting baobabs. They're not like your usual African baobabs growing in the plains. They kind of, they have their own character. And I guess because, they're never touched by elephants or anything, they have a unique look. So there is my bare-rooted Mingarelia. You can check the description for the scientific name. So let's try it out in the penjing now. All right, here we go. Will it look too big? Will it look ridiculous? Will it fit? That's another question. Wow, it certainly looks bigger than I expected. So there it is. Let me see. We got some sun coming out today. Well, it is big. It's bigger than I expected. Does it look too big is the question. I don't think it does. I think it makes the rocks look more miniature. You know, rather than a person's height being very small, I think I've kind of changed the scale of the planting so a person would be maybe twice as high as I originally envisioned. I've got a good pocket for soil in there. I think my tree is at a fairly good height. It's sitting on the bottom of the tray right now. Is there anything I can take off the bottom? Not really, because I would be cutting into the base of the tree. Yeah, I think that's about it. So I'm going to stand back, have a look at it, make my final decision. Do I want this tree in here, or do I want to try something else? You know, I am liking the tree in here. It changes the focus. Before I had the tree in here, the focus was all on the rocks and the landscape. Now the focus is on the tree. It becomes the most important thing in the planting. It makes the rocks just kind of look like background. And I think that's a good thing. I think the tree is interesting enough that your eye goes straight to the tree. Now, I think it's a good size. Now, do I need two trees in here? I could put the other one right beside it here. I'll try it out. I'll pull it out of the pot. It would take a bit of pruning to get it, you know, shorter than this main tree. I would have to kind of maybe have it so it bends away and finds its own spot of light. I think it's worth trying. I mean, I've got two Ming Aurelius. I might as well use them together in the one planting. Kind of utilizing this material. Otherwise, you know, I'd have to grow this for many years and trim it and grow it and to become its own bonsai. I think to be second fiddle to this one, to the $50 challenge tree, is a good use of this material. I don't have to wait, you know, 4 or 5 years for this to thicken up. I think it'll be always stay in good proportion with the main tree. And then if I don't like it in the planting, well, I don't have to use it. I can put it back in the pot. I'm going to pull it out of the pot first because you never know how much trunk is hidden in the pot because these are grown from cuttings. Oh, there's a pot within a pot here. It's doubled up. Okay, here I go. I'm pulling it out of the pot. I'll just loosen it up a bit first. There we go. Oh my goodness, look at all the roots. That is good. I will rake that out. No shortage of roots in here, is there? Looking really good. So it looks like Derek has rooted this in a fine bonsai mix. So probably the fines he sifted out of bonsai soil. And then I'm not sure what these particles are. They crush. I think that is akadama. Quite sure that is. Akadama ding dong. So what I'm seeing here is that this is going to take quite a severe root pruning to fit it in beside the other tree. Which I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to. I mean, they grow easily from cuttings, so generally, if a tree grows easily from cuttings, then you can do quite a severe root prune and they'll recover because it's almost like a giant cutting once again. And we are getting more sun these days. The days are getting longer. So I think it's quite a good time to repot this. Okay, so a lot of the fine roots have come off, but that's okay. So I need to root prune this and top prune it. I'm going to clean up my workbench here, then we'll be back for the top and the bottom pruning of the Mingorelia. All right, here I go. Now, let's look at the tree here. At the base, there's 1, 2, 3 branches coming from low down, and then the central trunk comes up and curves. If I want this to be planted beside the other tree, I will want that curve to go away from the main tree and have its own canopy. So if I prune it off here, it's too tall. It doesn't look like a baobab at all. So maybe like a hard prune through here where the curve is. Now these Mingorelias tend to grow straight up. Well, you can see everything grows vertical. The only reason a branch grows on an angle is if there's a canopy above and a new branch grows out, it kind of grows out reaching for light. But generally they're pretty vertical growers, which is a bit of a disadvantage in making this look like a baobab. The height, yeah, I think I'm just going to prune back the branches for now. So to here, like that, and to here, and this back one, I'm looking for a backward facing bud, maybe down here, like that. So that gets the top pruned back. Let's prune the roots now. I'm going to have to make it fairly shallow, so it'll be kind of establishing a root plane straight through here, like that. You know, keeping most of my radial roots here. Now, you can always improve the root base, so I'm going to prune away some of the ones underneath the tree, like that. A little more, like that. Prune these roots back a bit more. These roots are growing too far down. I have to prune them off shorter. Don't want them growing down vertical. So I guess I'll prune them off even shorter here. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Let's see what it looks like in the pot now. All right, here it is, the pot. So this one would go somewhere here. That looks pretty good. I don't want it in line with this one, so I would probably bring this tree forward a bit and this one maybe back there. This tree's too forward. I think something more like that. I think it looks good. I definitely have to do some leaf pruning here. So I'll take this one off. This one back. This one back. And this one's too long. Now, is it an improvement having the two? I think it is. I think it gives more of the impression that there's more trees in the distance. And, you know, one of these could be a cutting back here also, but maybe that's too many. We'll see. It's a possibility to add another cutting at the very back to kind of give it a bit more depth. So I think this is looking good. I think I'm going to go with this. Now I've got to get the exact front of the main tree, which is an interesting question. Now the roots of the baobabs at Kubu Island, they do have kind of interesting roots like this, aerial roots almost. So I'm not going to remove those. So here, the tree's really wide up top, skinny at the bottom. In this view, the tree's wide at the bottom. It looks probably best either this view or maybe this view, but it's not very interesting branch-wise. I think this is where I did have the front of the tree. It is. So I think this is the view. I think it'll look best like that. And then this one back here, like that. Yes, I think that's good. This has got the better branch over here. These branches don't interfere with the secondary tree too much at all. Okay, that's looking good. Now, do I need to root prune the main tree at all? Maybe a little bit. So I think this one wild root here that winds around needs a bit of pruning, like that. I could shorten this one. Cut a few of the fine roots off, maybe this one back. Just trim the ones on the bottom here, keeping it flat on the bottom to get it as low as possible. I think that's about all I need to do. Yes, that looks tremendous. It is time to plant the trees now. I'm going to be using the Bonsai Supply soil, their Mommy Mix, which is a fine kind of bonsai soil. I think it'll work really well in this planting. So here I go. All right, here is my bonsai soil from the Bonsai Supply. So I'm going to place my main tree in there first, finding the front, which is right about here. And I want to put it back in this pocket right here, like that. And then the other tree will go in back here, kind of to the back. Okay, how am I going to do this? I need my third hand, but I don't have a third hand. I need my spoon. Where's my spoon? It's way over the other side of the room. See, this is good planning. Okay, you stay there, trees. Don't fall over. Stay. I'm going to get my spoon. I have my spoon. Okay, let me spoon the mix out without making a mess. Here I go. Take the scissors away now. Now, let me So once the roots grow, they will kind of fill this pocket of soil and the trees will stabilize in the pot. They won't be wired in or anything. I'll just have to be very careful that I don't bang them and knock them over or anything. Now, I considered desert roses for this planting. The reason I didn't put them in here, you can buy some nice miniature desert rose, but I'm afraid they will probably grow too quickly and quickly outgrow this planting. Whereas the Mingarelias, I think I can keep them to a decent size for a very, very long time. I think the desert rose would just, in 1 or 2 years, it'd become this big, fat, bulbous thing, and it would just look out of scale for this planting. Also, the leaves aren't that fine, whereas the Mingarelia has a more miniature-looking leaf size and texture. It's a compound leaf, but it certainly looks more miniature than most other trees. So you can see the trunk is kind of still sticking out of the soil here, the root base, so I've got to mound it up. And I might have to use moss to help me do that. I mean, I'll get it planted okay, but just doing final checks here. Make sure everything's looking good. The tree is nice and vertical. The soil is worked in around the roots. Okay, I think that's looking good for the soil. So I think the next step is to apply moss on top to kind of keep it all together. I'm wondering if I should maybe water the planting first before I put the moss on. I think so. Even though I've just freshly cut those roots, I think it'll be fine. Yeah, let me give it a watering. So here I go. Kind of get it around the roots here. So you can see it's filled that pocket with water. The excess kind of drains out the front here and between the rocks. So these, a lot of people just water these with misting bottles, so you can really control the amount of water that goes on. Kind of avoiding this overflow situation. So that's looking good. I'll get out the moss now, start applying that.